In our previous episode, things took a turn for the dramatic, but our boy always figures out a way to deal with them. After meeting Snowy's family and leaving a solid impression, the couple took a few days to kick back and enjoy a short vacation. But once that break was over, Lu Sheng jumped right back into his intense training grind. At the same time, the guide also showed up. The moment he realized the energy crystals weren't fully prepared, his mood shifted. What followed was waves of violent energy surging from him, instantly choking the air all around, so much so that even the martial saints nearby found it hard to breathe. Cumberland, trying to ease the tension, hurried to explain that this batch had actually outperformed the last one by 30%, and the total output had surpassed 500 kilograms. But the more he spoke, the shakier his voice got. The guide, clearly not in the mood for drawn-out explanations, snapped at him to cut to the point. He questions whether they were planning to surprise him or something. Cumberland, flustered, pulled out a video recording from Thousand Saints Island to clarify that it wasn't about withholding the crystals, rather that they had all been taken by one person. The guide's eyes locked onto the projection. On screen, it was our boy. The footage showed him kicking everyone's ass while snatching every last energy crystal and defeating every martial saint that stood in his way. When our boy declared that if they had a problem, then the so-called guide should come to talk to him in person, but unexpectedly the guide didn't get angry, and he started clapping. He seemed genuinely impressed, then chuckled and muttered how delightful this all was. It wasn't every day that a level 1 resource planet produced someone this entertaining. With a sharp grin revealing his jagged teeth, he told Cumberland to take him straight to Lu Sheng. He announces that maybe this journey won't be so boring after all. Meanwhile, elsewhere under a massive tree, Tan Zhongyue sat casually. The moment he sensed the terrifying energy, he quietly announced that the guide had arrived. Slowly opening his eyes, he gazed into the distance, wondering what would happen when the so-called peak of humanity crossed paths with someone from the heavens. Back at the Transcendent Martial School, Lin Zhengyue lay on a lounge chair, clearly enjoying her foot massage from her daughter. She casually asked Wan if there was anyone she liked lately. Wan, pouting, responded that she didn't have anyone in mind while still trying to knead her mother's feet, which wasn't easy, considering she's a martial saint after all. She was then asked if there wasn't anyone in the entire school who caught her eye. Wan explained that everyone there had basically grown up with her. They were like siblings, and dating them just felt too weird. Lin Zhengyue admitted that it made sense, then followed up by asking about people outside the school. Wan noted that she hadn't been out much over the years, so she hadn't exactly met a ton of people. Her mom pressed again. Surely someone must have left an impression during those rare occasions when she did go outside. Wan leaned on her hand looking quite thoughtful, and then gave a firm answer saying if she had to give a name, then it had to be Lu Sheng, Sister Snowy's boyfriend. She explained that when Sister Snowy was trapped in that underground cavern, and everyone else had already given up hope, Lu Sheng had charged in alone to save her. That kind of person, she said, was exactly the kind she'd want as a boyfriend. However, while our boy might have beaten every martial saint on Thousand Saints Island and walked out crowned as the peak of humanity, but in Wan's mind, nothing will ever come close to that moment when he charged in alone to rescue Snowy. And that very scene had etched itself deeper than any flashy battle ever could. Lin Zhengyue smiled at the answer, not the least bit surprised because this was exactly what she was hoping for. Then, all of a sudden, her eyes narrowed, and a powerful, or rather terrifying energy caught her attention. Without another word, she vanished. All Wan heard from her was a vague sentence telling her that she would be heading out for a while, and not knowing when she'd be back. She knew the guide had arrived, so she moved fast, slicing through the wind with a clear destination in mind. As she gently slid on her mask, her thoughts circled back to Lu Sheng, and she worried whether our boy had taken her words to heart last time. Whether he did or not, she knew she had to see for herself. Meanwhile, deep within an A-level cavern, chaos painted the scene with beast corpses littered the area, and at the very front, a young boy was charging headfirst into another pack. Behind him, a group of martial artists watched in disbelief. The way he threw himself into the fight, bare hands plunging into the creatures, had them shaken. Someone muttered that the kid was nuts, throwing away his life like that just to kill beasts, as if he'd carried some ancient grudge from a past life. That boy was none other than Zhao Ji. To him, the god of the military's body refinement technique was beyond extraordinary. He remarks that every session felt like a revelation, proof that the one who created it truly stood at the pinnacle of this world. Suddenly, he turned his head towards a direction and muttered, "The guide has arrived." But the thought faded as quickly as it came. He shook his head, blaming the remnants of this body's old memories again. With effort, he shoved those lingering thoughts aside and dove back into battle. As far as he was concerned, killing 10 million of these beasts might just be the key to returning to his own world. Meanwhile, the moment the guide set foot on Earth, word of his arrival exploded. Martial saints from all corners, even those who hadn't witnessed it firsthand, began moving. However, every single one of them converged toward the same destination. As the scene shifts once again, we return back on the small yacht. On a yacht, Snowy suddenly felt a chill. A wave of unease crept over her, and she began to worry. Then, without warning, a shadow appeared behind her. A voice calmly asked if she happened to know where Lu Sheng was. By the time Snowy managed to spin around, the entire yacht was surrounded. A whole crowd had gathered on deck. She recognized several of them right away, and judging by that alone, it wasn't hard to guess that the rest were all martial saints as well. But it was the man standing at the very front who sent a cold shiver down her spine. His presence alone screamed danger, and the way the others stood behind him, respectful and silent, made it clear he was far scarier than she initially thought. The guide casually asked where Zhao Ji was, then half-jokingly suggested that maybe Lu Sheng had already killed him. Cumberland stepped forward to explain while pointing towards Snowy, and declared that she was Lu Sheng's wife, adding that interrogating her should lead them straight to his location and the missing energy crystals as well. Snowy knew she had to get out of here. However, just before she was about to leap off the boat, right at that moment her body froze and she couldn't move. Cumberland, lifting a hand, announced with a mocking grin that a mere 6th level like her trying to escape in front of martial saints was laughable, calling it wishful thinking at best. But before he could bask in his own smugness, his name was called, and the voice remarked that the beating he'd taken last time clearly hadn't been enough. Hearing this, Cumberland jerked his head toward the sky.